There is one reason that Coach exists today and that they are an iconic American heritage brand. And that reason is Bonnie Cashin. Cashin was invited to Coach to be their first head designer, specifically to design women's handbags, which of course became the staple Coach product and which skyrocketed Coach into what it is today. In this video, I will share a brief overview of Cashin's life, but I'll mostly focus on Cashin's time with Coach and then how Coach continued to honor her legacy in the decades since she left. And of course, I will also have a plethora of beautiful Coach bags to illustrate what was going on during these different time periods. Some designed by Bonnie Cashin and some inspired by her. Welcome, I'm Autumn Beckman and I am here to help you live your most luxurious life within your budget. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my new videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Right now I'm doing a series all about Coach every Thursday. Once you're subscribed, you also won't miss my community posts, which I do daily, and that's where I share sales and fabulous bags and other things that I find. Also, don't miss my website, autumnbeckman.com. I will have that linked below. And that's where you can find things I've designed to help you curate and organize a meaningful collection of your most treasured things, such as the My Handbag Collection organizer. Here's a sample page from that organizer, the front and back of the item tracker. This is where you can track all the information you would ever want to know about your handbags and small goods. Those of you who have been watching my Coach series probably have already heard me say that I have been doing research on Coach for at this point a little over a month, and that it's been very frustrating because the information out there is very piecemeal. It's scattered all over the place, and so I'm having to find it and then put it together, and that is no different with information about Bonnie Cashin. I didn't find a single resource online that has all the information that I'm sharing with you today. I know a lot of people are very interested in Bonnie Cashin, so I do want to share a couple of resources that I did find the most helpful. One, of course, is this book by Dr. Stephanie Lake, who is Bonnie Cashin's heir. This book is called Bonnie Cashin, Chic is Where You Find It, and it is a fabulous book with all kinds of photos and text from the Bonnie Cashin archives. Dr. Lake also has a YouTube channel and an Instagram account. I will have all three of those resources listed in the description box below. Another amazing resource is Vintage Coachy. She's a collector of Bonnie Cashin bags. She has a vast, incredible, beautiful collection. She shares that collection on her Instagram, as well as a trip she got to take to visit the Coach archives in New York City. I'm not jealous. And she has put together a website cataloging a lot of the bags that Bonnie Cashin designed and some of the labels to help date them. And if you don't know the name of a bag you may have, you can look there for that too. Fabulous resource, and it will be linked in the description box below. Contemporary articles that I found on Bonnie Cashin, just to drive home the point here, had titles like "The Forgotten Designer Behind Some of Fashion's Biggest Trends." That's from the New York Times. Or "The Creator of American Sportswear Who Time Forgot," from Fashionista. Or from Harper's Bazaar, "Why Isn't Everyone Talking About Bonnie Cashin, the most influential designer you've never heard of?" I'm not going to give a detailed, in-depth look at her life outside of the Coach years because I'm really focusing on Coach here. But I will give you a little bit of an overview for context. Bonnie Cashin was alive from 1908 until 2000. She had a nice long life. An article about her from the Metropolitan Museum of Art describes her as a highly influential and original American fashion designer whose enduring impact on the industry continues to this day. Among the first designers to popularize sportswear, Cashin created informal yet sophisticated garments that were functional, seasonless, and collectible. Her unfussy and innovative creations were aimed at women on the go. Cashin's love of travel and the outdoors was a major inspiration for her work, which was characterized by clean lines, vivid colors, textured fabrics, and leather details. Her approach focused on creating practical clothing with high-quality materials that was not merely trendy, but timeless. She was born in California to creative parents. Her mother was a dressmaker, her father was a photographer, and her mother especially encouraged her to draw and design from an early age. Her fashion work included costume design for dance troupes and for theater, including on Broadway. She did Hollywood movie wardrobe design for about 60 films. She designed women's civilian defense uniforms for World War II and flight attendant uniforms for American Airlines. Notably, Coach also designed a bag for American Airlines flight attendants called the Stewardess. This is one of the Stewardess bags that was released to the general public. The American Airlines bag looks almost identical to it, except on the side, I think it's on the strap, it has a little stamp that has the American Airlines logo. And then when you open the bag up, instead of this solid pocket right here, the pocket had an opening. And if I'm correct, I think that was for the flight attendant's identification. That bag was introduced in 1977 by Coach. That was after Bonnie Cashin had left, but it was still in their style. My bag was from 2000. In the early 50s, Bonnie Cashin opened her own design studio called Bonnie Cashin Designs. And she pioneered the concept of layering, which we totally take for granted today. So many things that she came up with are things that we take advantage of today, like tall boots. That's her. Leather in fashion. That was Bonnie. And hardware in fashion, used in interesting ways such as turn locks instead of buttons, or kiss locks on the front of bags to make pockets. Previously, kiss locks had been used, but I think only on the tops of bags. This is Bonnie Cashin's mini tote. She designed for many different companies. Most notably for this audience, besides Coach, is that she designed for Hermes. And she was their only outside designer at that time. As I was doing my research, I kept coming across this phrase, American women's sportswear, and that she was one of the pioneers of it, and she really advanced it. And I kept being unclear about what sportswear meant in that context, because I heard that word and it sounds like sports and things you'd wear when you're doing sports, but then I would see the clothing and it didn't look like things you would wear when you're doing sports. So here is a great explanation of it from an article in Harper's Bazaar called How Quiet Luxury Gave Rise to the New American Sportswear Movement. And they said American sportswear doesn't actually refer to athletic wear, but clothes that emphasize ease and freedom of movement. Its beginnings can be traced back to the post-war years, when American women in a rapidly modernizing world started seeking both form and function in their clothes. Unlike the French couture of the time, these were clothes meant to be worn, not in gilded salons, but out on the streets. Since then, American sportswear has been a style mainstay, not just in American fashion, but in a much wider context. And that really helped me understand what she was doing with her fashion and how it fit in the context of the times. A lot of what she was designing was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and she retired in the 80s. So I hope that helps you too. And now we shift to handbags. The first bag that Bonnie Cashin released commercially, and she did this for a variety of retailers, including Coach, was her sling bag. There are a few different iterations of this. Most, if not all, have some kind of pocket on the front. And fun fact, and I learned this from the Bonnie Cashin Archives YouTube channel by Dr. Stephanie Lake, McCall's had a pattern for the sling bag. If you're into sewing, it's number 6794, and I found one the other day and purchased it, and they still had one available. So if it is still available, I will link it below in case you want to pick it up and make your own sling bag. And if you do that, I might want to commission you to make one for me, because learning this made me regret that I purged my sewing machine and all my sewing supplies when we decided to move across the country. Otherwise, I'd make one for myself. Now, in 1960, Lillian Kahn, if you have watched some of my previous Coach videos from this series, you'll know that Lillian Kahn and her husband Miles Kahn started working at Coach and then purchased the company. So by 1960, they own it. Lillian Kahn calls up Bonnie Cashin and asks her if she would come aboard at Coach, specifically to design women's handbags, which they had never done before. They'd been doing like men's wallets. Notably, Miles Kahn was against this idea. Lillian had to convince him. And when she first called Bonnie Cashin, Cashin said no. And the reason that she gave was that she was too busy with other things. But Lillian Kahn let Bonnie Cashin know that she was absolutely the only designer that she wanted at Coach. So she was willing to wait. And eventually, Bonnie Cashin did come aboard toward Coach and launched it into what it is today. It could have easily gone another way, and we would never even have heard of Coach today. Bonnie Cashin was with Coach from 1962 to 1974. Her first collection came out in 1962, and it was called the Cash and Carry collection. One of the most notable bags from that collection were the shopper totes. This is the dinky size. It's the smallest of at least 3 different sizes I know of. And it was designed to look like paper shopping bags. I mentioned earlier that Bonnie Cashin introduced the idea of layering. And it's interesting to note that when you look at some of her drawings with her handbags and some of the promotional materials for Coach that show these older bags, often it will be a woman standing with her arms out, and she'll have her arms just lined with handbag after handbag, and then there will be even more handbags across her body. So you know how in the last few years we've seen some runways where they pair a large bag with a small bag? That's not an original idea. That was Bonnie Cashin's idea. So these bags were designed to be carried alone or together. They were also designed, this one has a very stiff base, but they were designed to be able to fold them up and lay flat, at least according to something I read. I would not do that with this bag. In 1964, Bonnie Cashin introduced the turnlock, which we know as a very iconic piece of Coach heritage. And that idea was inspired by the turnlocks that held down the roof of a convertible on a car. I'll show you an example of a turnlock on this bag, which does not have one on the outside. We're used to seeing them on the outside, but this one is on the inside. You have this fabric pocket with the leather top and the little turnlock right there. There you go. Another distinctive feature of Bonnie Cashin designs is that she would pair neutrals with very bright colors. She would also do them on their own. But for example, she could take a neutral brown and then put a bright pink trim on it to create two-tone designs. In the 1940s, before she got to Coach, she had developed a particular shade of pink that she called Bonnie Pink. I have not found an example of this yet, but I will show you some other Coach pinks later in the video. And once she got to Coach, she introduced color to them. They'd all been neutrals at that point. She had special dye runs created for colors like mustard, pink, olive green, or lime. And you may also have noticed that she did some very colorful interiors. You just saw a close-up of this one, so let me show you on this bag. Actually, I'll show them side by side because they're slightly different. You'll notice here in the older bag that you have the stripes, but there are no lines between them. But on the newer bag here, there's a little fine black line between each stripe. I want to point that out because when I was first buying those original Bonnie Cashin Coach bags, I noticed that difference and I wondered about authenticity. They are both authentic. Both were produced. Also had linings for her bags that were different plaids, some colorful, some not so colorful, and as we know, many bags that were completely unlined. For example, on this Coach Courier bag, which if we lift the flap, we just see the other side of the leather. So we have the suede interior. By the way, these colorful stripes, I've seen them referred to as Mexican stripes, but I haven't yet found a resource that definitively gives me an answer about that. I do know that Bonnie Cashin traveled a lot and she got a lot of design inspirations from her travels. So my assumption would be that she got this from the stripes that you see in some traditional Mexican textiles like these blankets. But if anyone knows for sure or knows any different, please let me know in the comment section below. In 1968, while she was with Coach, Cashin received the American Handbag Designer Award. If you look at her Wikipedia page, you will see a vast list of other awards she won throughout her lifetime. Based on my observations of the Coach bags that Bonnie Cashin designed, I noticed a few things that you see over and over again. And once you start learning these things, you'll start seeing Bonnie Cashin's influence all over the place, not just with Coach, but with many other fashion houses and designs. So one is the turnlock, another is the kiss lock, particularly when it's used on the front or the side of bags as a pocket. Rounded corners, so I've never seen a sharp corner in a Bonnie Cashin design, and most edges, at least on pockets, tend to be round, not a really straight line, but they have at least a slight curve to them and a much more obvious curve at what would be corners. You also get, I'll bring this closer, this binding as the way to finish edges, very common in Cashin designs. Sometimes that binding will be tonal with the rest of the bag. Other times it will be a contrasting color. Exterior pockets are a big thing. I'm going to show you several bags in her style that have those. And of course, that multicolor striped lining. And I will show you several things that Coach did with that design in later decades. Now, I've only shown you a very, very tiny sampling of some of her Coach designs. I highly recommend to see a lot more of them in one place. You go to Vintage Coach's website, which I'll have linked below. I do not have time to show you all of them. There's so much. She was very prolific. And Bonnie Cashin left Coach in 1974. She moved on to other things, but her influence in Coach lives on to this day. And you see it through some of those elements that I just talked about, but also through special collections and re-releases of her original designs and redesigns of those original designs. So in chronological order, I'm going to show you several of those. This is not an exhaustive list. They continued making handbags in her style up until around 2000. That included bags like the Courier or the Stewardess. Can you tell I like British tan? Or the Court. Those are the bags we tend to refer to as vintage Coach. Some were her original designs, some were newer designs that were done in her style. And when Coach got into the 2000s, they started moving on with their designs to completely new things, but often still highly influenced by Bonnie Cashin. For example, in 2006, this Ergo tote. We see this oversized turnlock, the binding along the edges, the curves, and inside what came to be known as the legacy stripe. I think you can see it a little better from this side with that creed patch not in the way. Beautiful. I wish they would still do this on more bags. Also in 2006, this Carly bag in tweed. Here you see that beautiful texture. Bonnie Cashin worked with fabrics like this. You see the side pockets, which have turn locks. They're slightly curved, not completely pointy. You also have a turn lock on the top of the bag. Cashin designed a few bags that were like that. And when you open this up, there's a big surprise on the inside. So you go from this kind of dull tweed, very wintry, to this beautiful bright color. That is very Bonnie Cashin. In 2008, Coach released at least 2 archive collections, both of which featured bags in the style of Bonnie Cashin. And you'll know they're from these collections by looking at the special markings on their hang tags. I have 2 bags in my personal collection to show you from this first collection. The first is this. It's been sitting on the shelf behind me. It's hard to see back there, but this is a gorgeous bag in suede, purple suede, I mean. You can see all the pockets, you can see the corners and how the sides are curved. You can see, of course, the chunky turn locks, and there's more here. Now, I just mentioned the hang tags. I realized when I was prepping for this video, this is probably not the original hang tag that went with this bag. It's tiny, the color is perfect, so maybe it is, but I'll show you on the next bag what the tag should look like, I think. Let me show you the inside of this too, it's amazing. It has the legacy stripes, but this time going sideways. And I think this was designed so you could carry your laptop. It has lots of pockets and it's fabulous. The other bag I have from this archive collection, a few of you have seen and asked about, and it was up there, and it is this bag. It's called the Peyton. This one's in lime green. Let me give you a little spin. So you see the pockets, everything we just talked about, the turn locks. And then when you turn it, it's like a flight bag, but it has 2 compartments. A zippered pocket on the back. There you go, and here's the bottom. No feet on this one. That last one did have feet. When you open this, it also has the legacy stripes. This time they're vertical. And let's look at this hang tag. First of all, it is a big, chunky thing. It's not tiny like that last one. It has the Coach cartouche with the horse and carriage on top, and it says established 1941 underneath. But on the back, this way, debossed, it says Coach Archive Limited Edition. So that's what you're looking for with the archive collection. That same year, 2008, Coach also opened a store on Bleecker Street in Manhattan, and they released a Bleecker Street archive collection. My understanding is that these bags were only sold at that store, but that may not be correct. If you know, please let me know in the comments. One of those bags is the Safari bag, and then this one is the Ellie satchel. I love these 2 kiss lock pockets on the front. The hang tags on both of these bags read Bleecker Street Archive Edition, and they're numbered. So they are a numbered limited edition. Coach did a few of those, and at some point I'm going to do a video on their limited editions and show you a couple of the numbered bags that I have. Another bag from 2008 that was highly influenced by Bonnie Cashin is this. This is the Amanda clutch. This bag is done in satin, and it came in a few different colorways. This one is pink and orange. This oversized turn lock is not functional. It's the only non-functional turn lock that I have seen from Coach so far. Cashin did several designs that were fold-over clutches like this. This one has a removable strap, and look at it. It is an oversized beaded thing that they use to hang the hang tags. So let's take this bag for a spin. You've got the front there, the sides, the back. You have the kiss lock pocket. I love how they did the color blocking on these. So you've got the orange inside. That chain is removable, so you can carry it as a clutch or as a shoulder bag. And then when you open it up, you have another zip pocket here. And then to access the main compartment, you have another zipper on the top. And that opens to an orange interior with a gold creed. A really fun bag that has so many elements of Cashin. In 2009, Coach released a collection that was made for factories, so it was just for their outlets. Although I say that, and I don't know for sure if they didn't also do a collection for the boutiques, but the one that I have to show you is for the outlet. And this collection had really oversized, chunky turn locks. They were sometimes functional and sometimes decorative. This bag is called the Lily Tote, and you can see it has this strap, which is functional, that has all these turn lock pieces. When you open that, we look at the inside, we have the legacy stripe, except it's a little different this time. On the ones I showed you previously, all the stripes were the same width. This one you can see has some stripes that are thicker and some that are thinner. And in the spring of 2009, Coach released a collection inspired by Bonnie Cashin. You can find it in the Volume 2 catalog for that year called All About Spring, and I'm going to show you the pages. And I have a bag from the collection to show you too. Here's a good example of what I meant earlier when I talked about layering bags. This is a sketch from Bonnie Cashin where the woman is holding several bags. And here they've recreated that in the promo shot for this collection. These pages fold out to this, and you can see they did half the collection in cool colors and half in warm. Some of the bags were canvas like this, and several had these kiss lock pockets on the front. Here are more of Cashin's sketches, and notice the stripes in the background. More bags, and more bags, and more layering, and more bags, and more, and more. And there's the final page. And from that collection, I have this bag to show you. This has an adjustable and detachable strap, a zippered pocket on the front, and these handles, the magnetic interior. The inside's kind of boring, given the nice colors on the outside. But you see how the strap attaches partway down the bag? That's because it's made to be a fold-over bag like that. So the handles are not only functional, but decorative. So when you're wearing it, it would sit like that on you. In 2012, Coach re-released a few of their earlier designs, all at least in the style of Bonnie Cashin. And these bags, rather than updating them, looked exactly like the originals. Another, which is from that line, is my Coach Madison satchel. I have a video where I opened this recently in collaboration with Dawn of Dawn Loves Couture. She unboxed an original Madison satchel. So I'll link those videos below in case you missed them. And here's a little spin. It's very much like a Speedy bag, so it's a common style. I love the color. Also in 2009, Coach released what I've seen called the Legacy Archive Collection. There are a lot of archive collections. It's hard to keep them straight. And these included bags like this blue bucket bag. Notice the two-tone colors of that blue, and this dinky again with two tones. So they released original designs, but they updated them and they updated the colors. This collection I've also noticed has tassels attached, and that's the first time I've seen this from Coach. As far as I could tell, 2019 is the first time that Coach introduced their Coach Originals collection. And this line is still in production today, but they vary the bags from year to year or season to season. For the Coach Originals collection, they take original designs from Coach's early days and they update them for modern lifestyles. You may remember in 2020 this Courier Carryall or this Rambler from those collections. Now, one of my very favorite updated collections was for the Spring-Summer 2021 runway, where they updated the cash and carry totes. Remember, that's these guys. So this is the original, and they did do some that have this nice thick chunky handle, but the ones that I have these very thin strappy handles, and Bonnie Cashin does have bags like that from her days with Coach. So I have this one, which was a very limited edition. There were 50 of these made. It has the Coach leatherware logo embossed on the front, debossed, and one of my prized pieces in my entire Coach collection, this tote from the runway with Pearl Paint, which is an art store in New York where I used to shop when I was an art student there. From 2022, I also have the Kip crossbody. My guess is this was part of a Coach Originals line, but I couldn't find information on it. It doesn't say anything on the hang tag. But you see it has the turn lock and the binding. Very reminiscent of Bonnie Cashin. And that brings us to present day 2024. At the time of filming this, they have very recently released their latest bag from the Coach Originals collection. And that is this fringe bag, which tempts me, even though I'm generally not a fringe person. But as I've been doing all this research, learning more about Coach and about Bonnie Cashin, it makes me appreciate these designs more. And I find myself drawn toward things that before this, I wouldn't have been drawn toward because I appreciate it more now. Does that ever happen to you? If you have any other information to share about Bonnie Cashin or any collections that Coach or anyone else has done related to her, please put that information in a comment below. Let me know what you think. What's your favorite Bonnie Cashin bag? Where else do you see elements of her designs pop up in your life? Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.